Hi, this is Dave Mustaine from Megadeth, and you're listening to Heavy Mag.
Beautiful, Dave. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Of course. Good morning to you too, sir.
So Megadeth are going to be in Australia in just a few short weeks, mate, as part of the first ever Knotfest shows in this country over March 24th, 25th and 26th. Now, I know Megadeth's done pretty much everything the metal world has to offer, mate, but it's something like playing the first ever festival like Knotfest in a country still something special?
Playing in front of the Australian people is way more important than the name of any festival that we're on. Having said that, being part of the Knotfest thing, yeah, sure, that's cool. They're friends of ours, and they have the same management we do. We have a lot of the same people working for us, for them. I think we have the same agents and so on and so forth. So it's cool to be part of that too. We would love to be able to have a bit of involvement in making Knotfest a success down in Australia.
Sure. And Knotfest also features bands like Trivium, Amon Amarth, In Flames, Spiritbox, Malevolence, Story of the Year, Knocked Loose, and Bad Omens, mate. So are there any of those international bands there that you haven't played with before?
I don't know everybody on the bill. You want to tell me who they are, run down it real quick, and I'll say yes real quick?
Trivium.
Yes.
Amon Amarth.
Yes.
In Flames.
Yes.
Spiritbox.
Who?
Spiritbox.
No.
Malevolence.
No.
Story of the Year.
Nope.
Knocked Loose.
What?
Knocked Loose.
Nope.
Wow, and Bad Omens. Right, there's quite a few there that you haven't played with before.
Yeah, I don't recognize the name. I don't know where they're from, but we're open to playing with anybody. We've played with really poor bands, really terrible production shows, bad behavior in the bands and shit, and just all around guys that really, I don't know, shouldn't be in the music business, you know what I mean? And I think there's a handful of people that we've played with too that are obviously the top of the roster. Maiden, Black Sabbath, Ozzy, AC/DC, playing with this new round of talent too. Obviously Slipknot's at the very top of it, but super excited about playing with Bullet for My Valentine in Canada right after we visit your lovely country.
Now, I hope I've got my facts right here, mate, but this is your first trip to Australia since 2015 from memory. So what has changed with the band since the last time you were here?
Well, a lot. I mean, a lot, I would have to say. We've had some minor changes. And every time we did that, the person that came in was better. When we parted ways with the drummer before Dirk, it was the person before Chris Adler, which was Sean Drover. We tried to get the Rust in Peace lineup back together. Didn't work with Nick. Nick went off one way, we went the other. Contacted Adler and asked him if he would play on the record, and then maybe contact Nick again and have him tour with us, since he couldn't really do the record. That didn't work out either. So we had Chris do the record and stay. And while we were doing that, Chris and his band parted ways. And we didn't know if Chris was going to stay with us, stay with them. Of course, we wanted him to stay with Lamb of God. I'm sad that he left and that there's any kind of distance between the family. I do think that Art is an amazing drummer. And then after that, Chris Adler recommended Dirk. And Dirk is, in my mind, the best drummer we've had since Gar Samuelson. He is a big fan of Gar, and that is the power that drives Megadeth, that jazz metal, not like rock metal. You know, Nick was a super talented and powerful drummer. And he fortunately was able to do a lot of those jazz hooks too. So we almost had that magic that we did when Gar was there, but we definitely had something that Gar did not, which was the power that Nick Menzik possessed. You know, same thing can go down the line with the bass playing. Ellefson was in the band. He was out. James came in. He was out. Ellefson came back because the Drover brothers kept pressuring me to do this, get Ellefson back. He came in. We had that weird shit that happened. I had Steve DiGiorgio come in and record the record, and James is back. And I love that he's back. The singing is fabulous on stage. He actually can sing, and really well. So he helps encourage me to sing. And then Kiko, as you know, after I parted ways with Chris Broderick, I mean, where do you go from having Marty Friedman and Chris Poland, you know, and it's time to make a guitar player change again, you know. So Kiko, I saw a video online of Kiko actually being put head to head against Chris Broderick. Someone made a video of that, right? And I watched it and I went, fuck. I got to get in touch with this guy. And the funny thing was that when I contacted him, he said that he'd been talking to Ellefson. So when I talked to Ellefson the next time, I said, "What the fuck's wrong with you, man? Why didn't you tell me you know this guy?" So that was a great addition to the band. Kiko and James play really well together. And Kiko and Dirk have an amazing ability to play those crazy riffs together. Of course, we can always be better. So we all go into the jam room every day and try and work on little bits and pieces of the song. And our record producer is out with us on the road as our music director, helping us keep our chops up.
Very cool. And you've also got two side shows while you're here with In Flames on March the 21st in Adelaide and March the 22nd in Melbourne. So how are those shows going to be different to the ones that you play at Knotfest?
Well, I think it's probably safe to say it's going to be a little longer. You know, the festival, I don't know what our performance time is. It's probably going to be around, you know, an hour or so. And then the headlining show is probably going to be an hour and 15 to an hour and 30. You know, we just got done doing that show in Budokan, and you know, that was that global live stream event around the world, and after that they had video on demand for a while, and at some point we're going to be making a Blu-ray DVD of that, and anybody that saw that can see how well the band congeals on stage, the chemistry that we have. And of course it was magic when Marty came out on stage, but Kiko's a smart chap. I know he was watching Marty very studiously.
So including last year's album, The Sick, the Dying and the Dead, Megadeth have released 16 albums, mate. So it's becoming increasingly difficult for you to come up with a set list to satisfy as many people as possible?
Oh yeah.
I bet it is.
Yeah, if you were thinking this, it's hard for Dave. You think right. If you were just coming up with a random question, you think right. Hardest part is shit. You got 200 songs, and you start thinking, okay, so let's play this one tonight. And you say, do you guys know this one? And they might not. And we're constantly digging into our archives and adding new songs, because that's the beauty of guys of this caliber, is you can go in and in a day's notice be able to add anything to your show. The thing with us, though, having production, when you have a song, we use some video to help accentuate the parts in the songs. And if it's a song that we're not prepared to play and we just randomly pull it out, then we have to either forego the video and just use the lighting features of the production and any of the other special effects. And, that's something that once you start using a certain type of production, you tend to like to see that be part of things. I don't want to be slave to a video or to a fog machine or a laser or anything like that. So I've always relied on the music doing the talking, but it would be cool to have some way where people could randomly ask for songs, and let us know what they want to hear. We've always looked at the charts and said, what are the songs people like the most? And the staples are the ones, and it's the random ones that we want to do. These guys are always belly aching about wanting to play Good Morning Black Friday.
Megadeth celebrate your 40th year this year, which amongst other things would have taken a huge toll on your body, mate. Now, I say this with all due respect because I'm an old fellow myself, but how do you compensate on stage for the fact that maybe you can't do some of the things that you could 4 decades ago?
Well, I don't really know what I cannot do that I used to do 4 years ago. I think that probably the only thing that I have any difficulty doing is getting up in a certain pitch now that I've had my neck operated on and had a metal plate put into my my spine because of the damage that happened to my neck. It's a wonder, based on everything that's happened, that the big guy upstairs is even letting me continue to do what I love. I don't want to be a victim. I can't stand people who play the victim. So I'm not going to, give you a litany of all my injuries, but suffice to say, I feel great right now. And I don't really think there's anything that I cannot do. I won't jump out of an airplane anymore because of the plate in my neck. And because you may have seen something about this, but I'm going to be an Opa. My son is going to be a dad, and so I remember when I found out we were going to have Justice, I stopped skydiving. So that's one thing I don't do anymore. But I think given what's happened to me with the stenosis and the broken neck bone, and I've got another broken bone in my back from riding horses, playing polo, because I don't know how to play polo, and for some stupid reason my wife convinced me to get out there and do it, and I ended up with a broken bone in my back. Go figure. Love makes you do some strange things, man.
Oh yeah, it does.
32 years later.
Still kicking, brother, still kicking. Going back to the start, mate, like you started Megadeth back in 1983, man. So what was the musical climate like back then that gave birth to the band? And where did you fit in initially?
Well, the scene was much different. Right now there are so many people in the music business that aren't really musicians. Before, when you would say music business, it was kind of like all one word, you know what I mean? Now it's music and business, and there's people that are in the business side that don't have a musical bone in their body. And then you look at the digital audio workstations like Pro Tools and Cakewalk and Cubase and GarageBand and all that stuff that has made it possible for somebody who knows how to play guitar a little to seem like a bona fide band, yeah. Right? And a lot of other bands, you hear a band and you think they got it going on, and you check out their record, you look at their video, you see the numbers, and then you get them out on the road. And it's a totally different band. And I think that has been one of the greatest travesties to the music fan, is that, with all of the cut and pasting that you can do now with music instead of having to do it on tape. A lot of people that really don't have the musical gift are playing music. And that's why sometimes it feels so bleached, so artificial, so robotic. You know, I love having feeling in our band. I love when the drummer breaks into a swing groove. You know, Marty Friedman came up to us after sound checking in Tokyo and he goes, I love your drummer. I've never heard that beat before. And I've been in the band for 10 years or whatever he said, right? And I looked at him and I said, well, that's how the drum beat was supposed to be played since the beginning, Marty. It's just that when you were in the band, Nick was playing, and Nick did his best to emulate that. But drumming is something that's real different. The notation of a musical instrument, you can get pretty close. People think that drumming's really easy to emulate, but it's not. Especially when you have somebody who is a jazz drummer who all of a sudden finds this e-ticket to stardom. And all he's asked to do is just hit his drums a little harder. That's what it was like for Gar Samuelson. He came in and he had everything except for the power. He had the finesse, the hand speed, the combinations. He used to do some moves with his cymbals and the use of his snare in between that was mind-blowing. And they had a name for it. It was called Garfills, and that wasn't just between us, the community where he lived, all the jazz bros. Gar was the manager of PC Rich Guitars, and all the musicians that went in there knew he had the goods. So when Marty said, I haven't heard that drum beat ever, it's like, well, you know what? We are getting closer to the sweet spot than we've ever been. Awesome. And I think that's what the Australian fans are going to experience at those headline shows. They're going to see us really breaking into a little bit more of the songs off the beaten path. When you only have 55, 60 minutes at a festival to play, and you're playing to so many other fans that may not have ever heard you. It's not possible that, it's possible that there's a lot of people in Australia that have never heard Megadeth, or I know there's a lot of bands they probably have never heard. So I have to take that approach to it. But the headlining show is a little different. It feels a little bit more like, instead of playing in the middle of the street, that you're playing on your front porch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll get you. So over the course of your career, music has seen many changes, especially in heavy metal. So I pretty much already know the answer to this, but I want to hear your version on it, mate. Like, has Megadeth ever tried to change with the times, or have you more stuck to your own path?
The only time I would say we probably got close to what you're suggesting would have been in 1992, when Nirvana and Def Leppard were the only two obvious paths to take. Knowing how they were dominating the radio, it was clear that you were either going to be hair metal or you were going to be alternative grunge. And I didn't really think that it was the right move for me to try and pursue Nirvana, although I think that Kurt was a good songwriter. Dave Grohl is, to me, an amazing drummer. And, I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but, when people think about Nirvana, they think so much about Kurt. And I really wonder how much Dave had to do with that, because he's an outstanding musician. And then the other thing was to be like Def Leppard and have all that production and, the big glassy programmed sounds and synthesizer and, the fancy outfits and stuff. So, during that period, we ran into a lot of pushback from the label. They wanted us to change our logo. They wanted us to write more radio songs. And I thought, what do you mean radio songs? I've never written a radio song in my life. So that's kind of why Countdown was so successful at the time, because the music climate was aching for something that wasn't either one of those paths. They wanted something that was heavy still, and we tried to stay in the center of the roof, if you know what I mean. And thankfully we did. it was the beginning of many, many other bands that would emulate us or my previous band.
And hopefully this isn't anytime soon, bro, but one day when you do decide to pull the curtain down on Megadeth, mate, like, what do you hope to leave as your musical legacy?
Oh, I've left a lot enough already.
Yeah.
I think anything beyond right now, you know, how is it that the last record of your career to date is your biggest charting record around the world? How does that happen? It doesn't usually happen like that. You know, this record's bigger than any record we've had, period. And now it's just a matter of time and what the internet and peer-to-peer file transferring does to the actual sales. You know, back in the day, they used to keep track of record sales one way, and then they started doing it with SoundScan and SoundScan. And if you can believe it, as many records as Killing Is My Business has sold in the United States of America, they're still professing that it's not gold.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
I've signed over 500,000 of those fucking records, and they're saying, well, we didn't start keeping track until such and such a date. And it's made me really disillusioned with awards at all, because I've heard of two artists I know of, I won't say anything about, but I've heard of two artists that have purchased their own record to make it gold to perpetuate their splash into the music business. And, you know, both of those bands, one is really old and one's pretty new, and they're both massive stars. So yeah, that's kind of a shitty thing, I think.
Yeah, definitely, man. And that's the bit us about Face, mate. Like it's great that your last album is your biggest selling so far, but why do you think that is, mate? Like most bands sort of plateau and then they get just on a steady roll with the rest of their career, but you just keeps going up and up, man. Like what do you put that down to?
Just being Dave, I guess. I don't know. You know,
That's enough. Do you think do you think your music's changed much like since Killing Is My Business up until this album?
it can change. There are plenty of songs that are not in any way similar to Killing Is My Business. And if you took one song off of each record, starting with Killing, and take any record realistically past that, you know, you're going to be hard pressed to find something similar. Even Peace Sells, which had the same lineup on it, the effect had already started on the band of our trajectory into stardom and superstardom. You know, we were just four guys that played music when we signed to Combat. I had a reputation because of my time in Metallica, but it wasn't really that big yet. And once we signed to Combat, we started to, all of us change. You know, I became a star and the other guys were becoming really famous, but they hadn't really made it into stardom. And then Ellefson became a star. And I don't really know if people would say that Poland or Samuelson are, but I always thought that Gar was a star.
That's actually a cool little idea there, bro. You just brought to mind. Like you've got 16 albums out that'll make a cool set list. Just take one song off each album, like get your fans to vote for their favorite song off each album. And there's your 16 songs for a set list.
Yeah, but then you got to think about, you know, if they pick Holy Wars, then there's no Tornado, there's no Hanger. If they pick one song on some records, they're going to miss out on the other, because some of the records we played two songs off of, and some records were during that nadir in our career where we had some lineups that were out of necessity and not out of choice. And no digs on any of the lineup that we've had over the years, because they've all been super talented. Even guys that, you know, insist on still carrying a grudge. You know, I believe all the guys we've played with would never have been in my band if I didn't see something in them that made me awestruck. You know, no matter how talented they were. Let's look at the drummers on the list of all of them. You know, you've got Jimmy DeGrasso, who's an amazing drummer. Sean Drover was great. Gar, Adler, Menza, Dirk, and then there's Chuck Beeler. And most people don't think of Chuck. Out of the list of all of those drummers, I don't think that Chuck would really be high up on that list. But I saw something with him that I really liked. He had that punk edge that I loved, being a punk surfer in California. And I think that it was that element that he possessed that was part of what I liked, that made me kind of go, it doesn't matter if he doesn't have that jazz part, or it doesn't matter if he has that power part, that rock part. He can just go really fast and do punk beats and stuff like that. That's awesome, which is why the drums on So Far So Good So What sounds so bizarre. We went in there, and the producer, Paul Lanny, made Chuck drum to that record 2 times. First time was all drums, no cymbals. The second time was all cymbals, no drums.
Wow.
It was one of the strangest things I've ever heard. Now, people have done that. People have done that in the past. I thought it was a terrible move, and I think it really handicapped Chuck, because I still think that he possesses an amazing talent with that punk rock gift that he has, and so on with the different players. But it's really hard to pick who's the best.
Oh, mate, we're running out of time here, so I'll just throw one last question at you, mate. And I don't ask this to many people, but you're one of the few that's in a position to answer it, bro. So if you had to name your top 3 commandments of metal, what would they be?
Ooh, good question. I don't know. I'm totally caught off guard. I guess treat the other bands the way that you want to be treated. And to find something that's something you can believe in, a power that's greater than yourself, that you can love with your whole heart, soul, mind, and body. And hopefully when they find that power, that they can, feel compelled to not let down and to strive for higher things, higher self. That's when you start to really dig into your instrument, because you feel a brevity in your life. You start to feel a lightness too in your step, where you're not going through things with a chip on your shoulder. Sure, you could be one of the baddest motherfuckers on the planet, but you don't have to ruin your life by walking around angry all the time. When people see me, generally, they see me in my happy mood, and I very rarely get angry anymore. I was doing an interview with Masa Udo at Tower Records in Japan recently, and he goes, blah, 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 blah. And the interpreter goes, yeah, he thinks you're very kind right now. And I looked over at him and I went, fuck you. And he jumped up off of his stool and stepped back, and the whole audience laughed, because they did not expect me to do that. And it's not that I'm this softer, gentler brand of Dave. I have just learned that there's so much more to enjoy in life, especially in our metal community. I let my differences with James and with Lars leak over into a lot of my other relationships, and I've made peace with those guys. And looking back at the wreckage, of my past, of a lot of the bands that we've toured with and we never really got to hang with, that kind of it weighs on me that I've missed out on so many people. When we were just starting, sure, we hung out with some of the bands, but a lot of them were fierce druggies, and that just made things worse, if you know what I mean. And I guess my third commitment would be, it's a lot easier to say no and turn it into a yes than to say yes and turn it into a no.
All right, Dave. Well, that is all I've got for you this time, bro. So thanks again for your time, mate, and thanks for letting us go a bit over time. And I'll be, I think we're doing backstage interviews at the Brisbane show for Knockfest, so hopefully we'll catch up then and
sure
have us say hello.
Sure, and I'll introduce you to the other band guys. All right, cheers, buddy.